Hey guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Okay, so today, with a very serious tone, I wanted to do a review of Emma Cline's The Girls. If you guys have been following me on Twitter and Goodreads and Instagram and stuff like that, you know that it's no mystery that I have absolutely just obsessed over this book and fallen in love with it. And it's really interesting because I was actually in Costco, which is like, if you're not in the United States, it's kind of like this warehouse store where you can get things discounted. And their selection of books is very, very interesting. It's usually things that came out like a year ago. So their paperbacks are cheap and things like that, like cheaper. And anyway, The Girls was there, and I was like, I've never seen this before. And if you haven't seen the cover of it, it's like very enticing. The picture is a girl, and it actually has a meaning. I'm looking it up on Instagram right now so I can show you because I put it on my Instagram. So do you see the cover? So it's this picture of this girl with sunglasses on and then like a heart on her forehead, and it's just like written The Girls by Emma Cline. And I was really attracted to the cover, and it's interesting because I'm not a believer that covers, or I wasn't a believer that covers can change like your wanting to read a book. But recently, I've been so attracted to certain books that I've like wanted to buy them just for the covers, and this is definitely one of them. I would never have picked this book up had it had some kind of different cover, probably. And so anyway, I picked it up, and I started reading the synopsis about it, and I was just completely blown away because right now I'm reading Helter, Skelter, which is about the Charles Manson murders, and The Girls, although it didn't say this in the synopsis, is kind of a rewriting of what happened then from one person's perspective. Kind of. I mean, it's based loosely on the Manson murder. So here's the story. It's about a girl named Evie, and she is 14 years old, and it's 1969. But really, the book starts much later than that. It starts, it doesn't say what age she is or what year it is, but she's an adult, and she's looking back on her life. And I don't really want to ruin a whole lot of it for you because the whole thing kind of starts off very bizarre. And I really liked how Emma Cline started the book because it's all done in retrospect, and it takes in real time, it takes 2 days. But anyway, it goes back and it tells this story about how, Evie is a very, and it's all, I think it's done in is it done in first person? Yeah. It's about how Evie is very misunderstood, and she lacks validation and acceptance from people, even including her parents. The mom and dad, when the story starts, are divorced, and the mom is constantly looking for a new boyfriend, and the dad has a new girlfriend who's much younger, and it's interesting how she writes the story. I know nothing about Emma Cline. I kind of try to find her on Twitter and Instagram, and I can't find her anywhere. But what's interesting is that her descriptive voice is so clear. The things that, there's a part where she's describing her dad's apartment, and she's describing the kind of being able to see the lines in the carpet and this bar rack and all. Okay, so what's interesting to me about that is I was actually born in 1972, which is 3 years after this book would have taken place. But I do remember some of those artifacts as I was growing up, the bar racks that people had, and the shag carpeting, and fake plants. When I was growing up, people always had fake plants. People don't really have fake plants anymore. So she does all these really descriptive things, from that to how the people dress, almost to the point where you can tell how someone's going to play out. Do you see that I wore a tie-dye shirt just for this video? Because 1969, flowers in our hair. Anyway, and it takes place in the Berkeley area, Palo Alto and Berkeley and that part of California. So anyway, she does such a great job of describing these things. And, when they talk about an author showing, not telling, she does such a great job of showing, not telling, to the point where you don't even realize that she's doing that. It's things right down to how somebody licks their lip or tucks their hair behind their ear, or, okay, so there's this whole scene about this boy falling in this pool. And she's just, how she describes the other girls is just, you could totally imagine yourself being there, but it goes deeper than that because she shows really the depth and the character of these people in this one scene that is maybe a page and a half long. Okay, so the story is about how she's best friends with this girl, and she, has kind of this crush on this guy. It's this girl's brother. and it's very unrealistic, very 14-year-old naivete. And she ends up meeting this girl kind of by happenstance, named, why can't I think of her name right now? Oh my God. Do I have to look this up, seriously? I just finished this book. Like, you cannot believe I can't remember this name. But anyway, I kept notes on it. Like, why can't I remember this girl's name? Suzanne. Suzanne. You guys know that song by Leonard Cohen. Anyway, I kept on thinking that through the whole book. But, okay, so she meets this girl named Suzanne who's, like, very wild and free spirit. And not so much, like, they never describe them really as hippies, but as kind of, like, freeloading, dumpster diving, kind of like spirited wispy girls. Like what you imagine those girls were like that were around Charles Manson. And she doesn't, and so like the Charles Manson type's character, his name is Russell, and she doesn't really, can you believe I remember him, but I don't remember the other main character? She doesn't really like fall after him, which is how you would think the book was gonna go. It's really, and this happens very early on, so I'm not ruining anything. Because I'm, you know, all for spoiler-free reviews. She kind of becomes instantly obsessed with Suzanne and who Suzanne is, and it's not really a sexuality thing. And I will say this book is highly, highly sexual. I mean, it references all kinds of sexual acts. The girl is 14 years old. I think for the time, it shows, you know, the era, it shows a lot of like sexual experimentation. But it's interesting what she does with sex in the book. It's like she almost like diminishes the act of sex itself. And it's all about control, a lot of it for her in the book, because she also talks about masturbating, which if you're a person that's going to be offended by drugs and sex and violence, which there's really not any violence in this book until the very end, but like this is not the book for you. I mean, this is like a literary fiction, kind of mystery, but not really. I mean, there's really no mystery to the book whatsoever. So anyway, you know, I was thinking while reading this book that like reading is kind of like, you know, not a time traveler, or like, I think Ann Tyler was the one that said like the phrase armchair traveler, you know, because as I was reading this book, like I really, really felt as if I was in 1969 and like I knew these girls like, you know, implicitly and, you know, really understood their motives and why they were doing the things they were, especially Evie, who kind of comes into her own at the end, but then the whole thing is like all done in retrospect, and it's so fantastic what she does at the end to like weave it all together, but at the same time you walk away and it's a very realistic, you know, ending. And so anyway, I'm not a person that like does the post-it notes. Like I've started seeing people talk about that on BookTube. Like that's too frantic of a way for me to read. I couldn't do that. And then I do use these little, like look, they are post-it notes, but I love them. I use them for my notepad and stuff. But I thought about using these as I was reading, but I was listening to it on an Audible book. So I actually just kept some notes in my phone because, see, I keep notes in my phone all the time. And then one of the first things I really realized was that the reason the book is so amazingly written, and what a great job she does, is that it's really about Evie's coming of age through her observations of others. I mean, she is very much an observer. She's not part of the grand story as it's going on. And that is important to the rest of the whole story, so I don't want to talk about that, but like her observations of her dad's girlfriend and her observations of her dad and imagining him in the future, and she stays very in the time too. Like I think it's hard to flash back and forth between now and then. A lot of authors I think get very confused when they do that and it kind of bleeds together. But I think she does an excellent job of that. Somebody tweeted me and said that, I think his name is Juan, but I think Carlos is his name. And he tweeted me and said that he thought the pacing was bad in the book, or he got kind of tired of the pacing sometimes. And it was interesting, I was at kind of a slow part of the book when he said, I saw his tweet, and I was kind of like, yeah, I agree with that, and then like instantly it picked up. I really did not have any problem with pacing in this book whatsoever. I finished it in like 2.5 days, the whole audiobook. And if you want to listen to it on Audible, the narrator is amazing. I mean, totally incredible. And really, the other part of it is that it's this love story with this girl, Suzanne, that I don't even think she realizes that she's in love with her until later. And there's one moment that is like, she talks about seeing her now and like her response to her today. I'm being very, you know, ambiguous and vague about this because I don't want to ruin anything for you. I mean, this is a must read if you guys like literary fiction. You know, I compared it earlier to like The Girl on the Train, The Girl in the Red Coat, but it's really not that. It's an excellent piece of literary fiction, descriptive of a time. And it's interesting because all of these books are coming out right now about like 1969 era, you know, and the Manson murders and all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, who's going to do it best? Like, who wore it best kind of thing, you know? I think it's interesting that hers is the first out of its type, kind of, because, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me and say that's not true, but it's so well done. I mean, this has been, you can tell this is not something that she wrote in 6 months. I mean, this is something that she's been researching and planning for a while. I mean, some of the descriptions of the places and the things are just awesome. And it's interesting, like, what she does. Like, if you know the story of the Manson murders and Helter, Skelter, like, if you read that book, it's like the house in The Girls and the house in when you're reading Helter Skelter are very similar. The players are very similar, almost identical, but like with a few twists that are there for a reason. And you don't realize, at first I thought, oh, she's just doing this to like change out people, you know, like, you know, instead of making it like Sharon Tate, let's do this. But like there's a reason why she does that. To show characteristics of the characters or personality traits of the characters. And it's so, I mean, it's so decisive and calculating how she does it. It's beautiful. And then there's one line in the book, and it's towards the end, but this won't ruin anything, that she says, and I love it. And she says, I love it especially today, reading the book in today's time, with everything that's going on in the world. And I heard it, and I just kind of stopped for a second, and I paused it, and I rewound it, and I listened to it again, because she says it, but like she says it like as a paragraph break, so it's like paragraph, line, paragraph. I don't know how it was written in the book, obviously, because I was listening to it on Audible, but the line is, hatred was easy. And I just was like, it stopped me in my tracks when she heard it, and I like rewound it. I was like, hatred was easy. And she talks about like, it's so, like we think it's so easy to be nice, but really it's so easy to be full of hate and angry, and how quick it can turn like that. And so really it's a book about that as well. I will tell you, it reminded me a lot of, if you ever read Joyce Carol Oates' book Zombie, which was really a characterization and a fictionalization of, you guys, I need to take that ginkgo biloba. I cannot remember anything to save my life. Jeffrey Dahmer. It was like a fictionalization of Jeffrey Dahmer and his life. So it kind of reminded me of Zombie, which was another book that I loved. And there were just some, like, okay, it was interesting, like, when I was looking at the reviews on Goodreads and things, and people gave this like 2 and 3 stars. If you're somebody that reads completely for enjoyment, period, and you don't really care about the writing, the task of writing, or the skill of writing, or the talent of writing, I can understand that maybe you didn't like this book and you gave it 2 out of 3 stars. But the writing alone, I mean, she is such a fantastic writer that this deserves 4 stars just for the writing alone, if you did not like the book itself or the story. And let me give you an example. This was a line that she used in the book, and I think it describes excuse me, the girls and how they look and act so well. And the line was, and this is how she's so good. I mean, this is almost reminds me of like Hemingway, how he could like write a line like in just very short line. You get, you know, you really understand what's going on. And she said, girls who spit in the dirt like rabid dogs. And she's describing them as she comes upon them. And I mean, when I heard that line, I was like, I mean, it's every line like that in the book. I mean, it's just so beautifully written. I mean, I wonder, is she just like writing it like this, or is she like thinking of each line, because she's so decisive in how she, you know, uses these words, and the way that it's almost like lyrical poetry, the way that she moves them together to like get you to either hate or like certain characters, because she really does do that. And I think you have to remember, not every book you're supposed to like the characters. I mean, a lot of characters you're supposed to despise. That's part of the purpose of the book, you know? And so anyway, I just thought it was fantastically done. It was a great summer read. The story for me was compelling right to the very end. It ended exactly where I think it was supposed to. It didn't linger on, and it was a very, very quick read for me and beautifully written. So for me, The Girls by Emma Cline was 5 out of 5 stars. And I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you want to see me do more reviews, please leave that in the comment section below, and I will talk to you later. Bye.